You're listening to Charting the Future, a podcast for independent pediatricians by PCC. For more information about our software and services, please visit www.pcc.com or visit us on social media.
Welcome back, friends, to Charting the Future with Chip Hart from PCC. I'm doing something I haven't done before, which is interview two guests at the same time. These two, I don't know if they think about it this way, but these two come hand in hand in a way, because I usually don't see one without seeing the other. I've got with me today Dr. Alan Johnson and Kathy Chebib. Some of you might know them as the OG backbone of SF Bay Pediatrics. Others may know them as the friendly people behind the booth of PracticeWell. If you come to any event, they are good supporters of our independent pediatric space. And first of all, I just want to say welcome. How are you two?
I'm well, as can be. Yeah.
And Kathy, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for asking us to join you on this, Chip.
Well, it's my pleasure. You guys are a treat to have on here. Here's my trick question. I open up with a trick question these days. It might be a different answer for each of you as well. Do either of you remember the first time we met? Because I don't. So some people I'm like, oh yes, we met here. But I'm trying to remember the first time we met.
Well, I know we met in New York.
Yep.
Because we went out to
we went to that great meal.
Yeah. We went out to check New York out. And I don't think I had any contact with you when we joined PCC as an EHR. That was probably later.
I think that was later. You and Andrew and I went up to the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
And then we went to a really cool restaurant where do you remember what the crazy food was that we had?
It was really funny, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, it was pig cheeks.
Yeah,
they served us half a pig head. We had to eat the pig cheeks. Kathy, how about you? Do you remember where we met?
Over the phone, we met.
Definitely.
When we were exploring EHRs, and we went over to visit East Bay Pediatrics.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Oken and Abbott at the time, and Carol.
Oh, those are some names.
Yeah.
We were
pulling back from distant memories, but I can still remember the green screen and DOS commands, and we were talking shortly after that. So I do
good old
remember
days were
that.
dummy terminals.
Yeah.
If I had my way, we would all go back to dummy workstations. Just like there fewer problems, fewer mistakes.
Yeah.
I think the first time we met, Kathy, must have been at something like the NCE, maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe the PCC Users Conference. Some people I really remember the first time we met, and other people I'm like, maybe they can remember. I've been doing this a long time, so it's become a meaningful question. So here's what I want to ask you both, because, Dr. Johnson, you are not freshly out of residency. I don't think that's a secret.
I don't think so.
No, you've seen a lot in your time, and I think for anyone in the pediatric space, just the origin story of how someone shows up and becomes a pediatrician, and then for you, Kathy, how you, like me, show up and support the pediatricians. I think just telling us the story of how you got to where you were. Like, when did you decide you wanted to be a pediatrician?
Well, I myself wanted to be a doctor as far as I can remember, and since I was 4.
Right.
I never played Indian.
So in the late 60s.
I wish it was the late 60s.
Yeah.
I don't think we had made it into the 50s yet when I had done it.
Yep.
So anyway, it was a while ago. And then I just marched the way through my educational process, went to the schools you had to go to. And then when I went to medical school, it was a very hands-on type of medical school. I went to the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it was a very new school. I was in the 5th class that ever graduated from the school. And it had started as a 2-year school and then went to a 4-year school, and the classes just continued to do that. And I always sort of was interested in that aspect of medicine, though I probably decided to be a pediatrician after I graduated. When I applied for my post-medical school residency program, I applied for a rotating internship because the year that I applied was the last year that they even accredited those. All of the programs that were going on were doing dedicated internships, or the first part of your post-medical school was in your specialty. But then, I did the rotating one just for my knowledge. I had done some things in my medical school life that were very interesting. And then I decided then that I was going to be a pediatrician. I really liked interacting with children. I've always had an interested in the health and well-being of children and so forth. And then I decided to be a pediatrician. Then I was interested in infectious disease and stuff. And so I took a little bit of a sidelight as doing my general pediatrics to do infectious disease and immunology. And that was also a very interesting time, and probably segues back to my interest in where the beginnings of PracticeWell were, is that I was intimately involved because I practiced in San Francisco with the advent of the AIDS epidemic, the HIV epidemic. That was really big, and it was not involving children until when I got involved in it. It was right at the beginning. I was there. I started medicine before that became an issue. And while it was developing, there was some findings of AIDS in children. And I was watching that as it unfolded, and I was involved in how that evolved. And then it sort of stayed for what it was. I was very into pediatrics and taking care of my patients, and then solving other physicians' problems with infectious disease questions and so forth. That's
unfortunately there's going to be a demand for that work.
Yeah, in practice, we actually started because of in general medicine and pediatrics there was a real big consolidation, and they tried to come up with new ways to not pay you, which was always an interesting thing, an interesting phenomenon that I've always found very interesting, is that medicine is probably the only, I don't know of any other, but I haven't checked all the various working requirements, that you're reimbursed for your work, and I like the word reimbursed. Right. You have to do something else, and then you have to be reimbursed. And not only you're reimbursed for what other people think you should be reimbursed for. And so that really makes a difference. And when they began to change the program from people bringing in their chickens and their ducks and their eggs to pay you for the work you did, and have some third person say, we'll give you a half an egg, because that seems to be what is fair. And especially with protecting against contagious infectious diseases that could be prevented. And I just throwing a little bit out there, but we're readjusting that. We're really having a nationwide effort to say maybe you shouldn't protect yourself from the variety of infectious diseases you can protect yourself from. And I noticed that was hard for people to do, because the cost of providing that wasn't being reimbursed. So myself and a couple of other physicians, and especially Kathy Chebib, begin to talk about what can we do to sort of help physicians survive, pediatricians especially, when they want to provide care to their patients. And it was an interesting learning experience. I distinctly remember driving to a meeting or something, and listening to a late night NPR program, talking to physicians. And I think it was in central Kansas, middle Kansas somewhere. And he was saying, with all of this new information about being able to prevent some of these diseases, and I think it was, about Haemophilus influenza, which was a bacteria causing significant meningitis and magnificent amounts of morbidity and mortality in children, that he couldn't afford to get it. He could not afford to buy it, keep it, and give it, and he was feeling, as a pediatrician, he was feeling bad.
So how did you end up in San Francisco?
Well, I trained in New Mexico, and then I did just a sort of a background. All of the physicians and listeners that know that when you're in medical school, you do your basic medicine, and then you do your clinical rotations, and when you get near the end of your junior year and your senior year, or even something before, they want you to leave. They want you to leave whatever institution you're at and go find something to do. It has to be related to medicine, and it has to be related to what the school says that you can do, but you go somewhere. And so I went somewhere. I went several wheres, but I went to San Francisco because I had a really good friend, and I was young and to be that. So I went up to San Francisco and did medicine in San Francisco at UCSF. I took my vacation time also. So I had a week or two of vacation. I did the clinical rotation, and then I did the vacation. In the clinical rotation, I had a very interesting team. Usually the teams in the medical school, and I don't know if they've changed a lot, but at least through mine there was always an attending physician, somebody on the faculty, a senior resident, not a second year resident, and then an intern, and then some medical students and part of the team. And my attending was a marvelous teacher, cardiologist, but really knew a lot about a lot of things, both social and stuff, and very interesting. I became friends with him to a certain degree, and even after I came back, we got together and he helped me. We bought wine together. And he was very, very knowledgeable about that. And Northern California was a place to study wine. So I did that rotation, and when I applied for my postgraduate programs, I put down San Francisco, and I did not put down USF as a choice. I had already been there and gone through it, and I knew that particular program wasn't for me. It was a fellowship-driven program. So if an intern or a junior resident had a question about a problem, well, we'll call the derm fellow. We'll go ahead and get the neurology fellow to come in and see that. We'll get it. And I'd already spent some moderate amount of my time in the wilderness doing things on my own. So I applied to the program that was headed by the attending of mine, and that attending I didn't find out until we were about to level. He was a member. He was a clinically faculty member from the Kaiser Permanente program. So I threw that into the bot, and that was one of the places that took me. And I went there. Was again another lot of hands-on, doing the work yourself, staying up. So I did that, and that's why I did that. And then I went and did some postgraduate training in infectious disease immunology at UCSF after that.
Got it.
And
so it doesn't sound like you sat still very long.
No, I wasn't a close relative of mine who doesn't sit still either.
Right. It is genetic. So meanwhile, Kathy Chebib, how do you show up in this picture?
I show up in the picture because my final course of study was MedTech. I had the great privilege of being able, in the days that I went to school, actually earning the money to pay for school while you were going to school. And so no student loans, no leaving college with debt, but leaving with 3 degrees, and one of which was medical technology. And so now they're called clinical laboratory scientists. And this was in the middle of Missouri. And my husband had just gotten his master's in international relations and business. And so I had started mine in genetics, but we decided to move and come out west where my family was, locally in the Bay Area. And we were on our way to Seattle, but because there were jobs abundant in the newspaper where they used to advertise for positions and people that they needed, we found a couple of jobs that sounded like they were made for us. And so we both, my husband and myself, stayed with our jobs for over 40 years, 44 years, etc. And I started with a pediatric practice very close to Dr. Alan Johnson's as their medical technologist, and they quickly asked me to move into a management position of the practice. And that was a completely new endeavor.
Hold on. You got to explain something, because it's 2026. And I still don't know any practices who hire a medical technologist, unless that term means something different to me. So what does that mean? You're the medical technologist.
Before your time.
Yeah.
Anybody who does currently moderately complex laboratory work, I think
kind of med tech.
They need to have a medical technologist. You're doing blood counts, you're doing cultures, you're doing all kinds of in-office laboratory work that you're qualified to do through your training and through having a requirement, I'm sure still must be in effect, to have the physician in charge of the moderately complex lab. Most labs that we're aware of do CLIA waived laboratory now, which is simple and has far less in the way of compliance metrics that have to be done on a routine basis because the tests have been simplified.
Yeah, and I was thinking in the early era they sort of pushed people out of that because they took away the ability for office laboratory to really exist, and so you had to. Right. So there probably that came about before you came on the scene, and so.
Yeah, I was thinking. I had in my head it would be the most, Dr. and Andrew Johnson thing in the world to hire someone to be their technology expert in their pediatric practice, and I was like, all right, I love that it was Kathy, And so, all right, so Kathy, you come along, though. You do that work.
I was at a different practice. I was not at Dr. Alan Johnson's practice.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So then how did you end up at his practice with a lot of your friends?
I didn't. I never worked for Alan Johnson except for rare times when I would fill in for somebody who was missing at his practice.
Our buildings were right next to each other, but we didn't, and I was really good friends with people who had hired her, and so we were two separate practices, but very, very integrated. And one of the things that we did early on is that Kathy and I, when we went to try to get electronic building systems instead of paper. I hate to tell you, but I was a paper doctor. I did my billing on paper, filled out all of that. That was early on.
The days.
And then we did that. We actually did the research together. We had talked about a lot of things just because she came over and helped me about some things, and we would talk about stuff. But we did our research. And Kathy is really good at that, about what electronic systems you could use to record patient activity and do billing.
Yep.
Chip, when we started, literally we had to ask what hardware was and what software was, because that was not common knowledge at that time.
Sure.
I went over to the radiology at the children's hospital next to us to see the only practice management system that we knew in existence at the time. And it was a mainframe, and it took up about, I'd say, 6 feet by 12 feet. And
Yep.
there was enough room to walk around it, connected with a great big air conditioning unit at the top. And that is how that radiology department functioned with practice management, was from that mainframe. And they did say, oh, now they have mini mainframes now. They're much smaller. And so you'd be able to get that. And that's how we started with a practice management computerized system.
What was the name of it?
Portman Douglas.
The company we started with at the beginning was
in
Portman
Portland.
Douglas.
It was the very first one we could find. And they did have eventually a PC version, but we found out that it was very expensive. Everything was very expensive. We found out we could split the hard drive and into two. And so literally Dr. Johnson and I, we threw an electric cable over to his roof from our roof, and we split our hard drive, ran the cable over, and that's how we utilized, maybe for, I don't know, 7, 8 years or more until they sold to somebody, how we shared a computer system to do our work. We split a hard drive between two practices.
Those were the days.
Yeah. They really date us when we have to tell you we had to figure out hardware and software.
Yeah. Now, so tell me how this all led to PediaFed and what PediaFed was and what it is today.
Certainly, I can help with a little bit of that history. Managed care started in the early 1980s in our area, and I think we were probably first in the country where insurance companies and organizations were saying, you sign up, you'll get all the patients you need, but you will be writing off part of your charges as a discount. And we all felt like we wanted to participate in that. It would lower some costs for patients. But at the same time, as pediatrics, we knew we were at the bottom of the barrel and couldn't imagine how we would write off 25% of our revenue, and still support and run practices. So Dr. Johnson and a physician in my practice got together and invited me and a few other practices and some nurses, administrators. It was a group effort, and it was decided that we could have meetings and help each of our practices by cooperating and bringing forth best practices, etc. We did that for a couple of years, and then we decided that one of our biggest costs was vaccine for our patients. And at that point, it was all on a tiered system. So in order to pay the least amount for vaccine, you had to buy 500 doses at a time, or you had to buy 700 doses at a time. It depended on the manufacturer and the product. And none of us could do that, but we put together a group of 10 practices, local practices in San Francisco, and I went to the manufacturer. It was Connaught at the time.
Oh my gosh, this is a name I haven't heard in a long time.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I said, will you count us as one customer if we buy our product together. I'll send you a order sheet once a month, and I'll send you the payment once a month. And will you give us the best tier, which we will qualify for? And they said yes, and they agreed to drop ship. So for 6 years, I collected orders every month. I collected payments every month. We were saving $7 to $8 a dose on vaccine. The doctors immediately told all of their friends, and it went throughout the country like wildfire. It was amazing. Grassroots, word of mouth. And we ended up kind of in 1989 with a spreadsheet that was 56 pages long, which I couldn't balance, and neither could the manufacturers. And so we were PediaFed at that point, and they said, we have to do this differently. They actually, I know we were first because they said, we have to hire somebody from pharma to be able to come in and write contracts so that you can have a contract. Doctors can order for their own practices on their own and pay their own bills. We'll load the contract pricing under everyone's account. And you will need to administer the contracts, and for that work that you do, we will give you an administration fee. And we started off as Pediatric Federation, got our first administration fee, I think, in 89. And then the doctors and the organization, the community, we always have returned that fee to the practices based on their purchase, less frugal overhead. It was very important for us to be a community, not to be a business. And so we've kept that philosophy from the beginning. And then in 2017, so many people have joined and wanted to join, and Pediatric Federation confused them if they were an OBGYN, family practice, internal medicine, etc. Can we join? Can we join? And so we did decide to change our name to PracticeWell, which is the community forum and platform, and then the actual contract holder is Physicians Buying Group, which holds the GPO contracts with the manufacturers and vendors. And we spread out from just vaccines into all types of requests from our members, the things that they need, that they feel are important. We have solicited contracts and obtained contracts to reduce their cost. And we continue that to this day. That's it in a nutshell.
How big is PracticeWell now?
We've got close to 6,000 active locations. There are at least 20,000 to 25,000 physicians.
Wow. You can't do that on a spreadsheet anymore.
No. No, and that's where Andrew Johnson comes in. He has been instrumental in building a back-end tech platform so that the reconciliations and the rebates and everything that makes our group can continue on a scalable fashion without the encumbrance of excessive overhead, because again, we guarantee that back to the practices.
Yeah, I don't know who the first vaccine buying group was, but you guys were among the first I ever met.
We feel that we were the first only because they had to hire somebody from pharma to be able to help with our group. Yep. And so they told us that we were the first ones that they were doing that for.
Certainly the first ones out on the West Coast that I'm aware of. One difference, though, is that you did it as a collective, for the collective. I would say the other two types of vaccine buying groups I know, certainly back then, this isn't true of all of them, they either did it to make money because it was private, or it came through a hospital, usually. Like there are a lot of hospitals, as you know, who form buying groups. But you are one of the few true collectives who ever made this happen, which is really quite interesting.
It was the desire of all of the physicians involved, the community.
Yep.
We had excellent attorneys that helped us design the group so that pressures would not be there to turn it into a business. And then we were fortunate when we made the changes in 2017. We also formed the new groups as benefit corporations. So we were able to write into our legal documents our goals for the community and our support of the community, as opposed to ownership, which was not important to us. It was more the being able to always continue this for the physician community and their patients.
Well, as a fellow benefit corporation, you know how much I appreciate that. I think that means you're really putting the needs of the people you serve ahead of the shareholders. So have you ever done the math to figure out what the value is of all the vaccines you've ever helped distribute? At this point, it's got to be $1 billion.
Well, I think that there's a difference in how you calculate that. We've looked at the value of what it would have cost, what you saved on the cost of the vaccines. And
sure. Yep.
Probably the last time that I talked to Andrew about that, it was around, was it $80 million or $90 million that they saved. So that's the savings. Yep.
No, that's the rebate.
No, the rebate was $9. Maybe maybe that's right. You're
80.
correct, Kathy. It was the rebate, $80 or $90 million. So I don't know we've never really looked at what the difference is between what you would have to pay for it and what you paid for it because you're a member of PracticeWell. It's a significant amount. Gave back.
We're in the realm of.
It's got to be more than that,
because between 400 and 500 million
a year
in purchases a year.
Yeah, so there you go.
And so
it's a couple billion.
It doesn't take
it's 10,
much
20 billion. Right.
Yeah,
to hit $1 billion. Well, the thing is, it just means that you were a key and crucial part of getting those kids immunized. Like that's a career achievement right there. That's a huge one.
Yeah, about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it dawned on us that our method of trying to get kids immunized and saving money for the physicians actually was an industry. It became the way that purchasing vaccines for physicians, independent and health systems, etc. It became the way it's done. Many sub-industries built up around the way we've always conducted our business. So that was a light bulb going off. Oh my goodness, did this really happen? Yes, it did.
How many people depend on you and then you're part of the system and you don't even notice that it's there anymore?
Yeah.
That's a big deal. So let me ask you, because you guys have you've seen the arrival of HMOs and capitation. You've seen the arrival of the Hib shot. I mean, that changed everything. All right. So what I'm going to ask you is, though, right now, I'm going to ask you a scary question each and then a more hopeful question. So, Dr. Johnson, I'll start with you. What's keeping you awake at night these days?
Well, since I am of a vintage that saw, I'll just put it this way. My sister-in-law, my wife's sister had paralytic polio, and she was in a wheelchair for her life, and that's it.
That's it. And that's the same answer I'm getting from just about everyone right now. Kathy, what about you, though? What keeps you awake at night?
I would say a couple of things. First of all, the current climate surrounding vaccination and degradation of trust that is unnecessary, and the permanent damage that that's done. So I'm hoping we can climb out of that in, a few years, but there has been brakes put on, and we have lost marvelous minds and smart people because of this. And that bothers me a lot. And I would say the other thing that really bothers me is the extreme amount of cost that higher education entails, that keeps people out of fields that they might ordinarily want to go in because they just cannot fathom the student loan and student debt. And that affects all layers of our society, and that is very bothersome to me. So those are the two things I would have to put high on the list.
Okay. Well, however, what makes you get out of bed every day? What excites you? What are you looking forward to in the next couple of years?
Is that for me?
Sure.
Yeah.
You can go first, Kathy.
Yeah. I would say a couple things. Having wonderful family has to be one of the best things ever, and great people that I work with, and the fact that there remain wonderful challenges to go after, to see if you can fix and make things better. Those are always at the top of my list.
Okay. Dr. Johnson, what are you excited about in this business right now?
Well, like Kathy, I have a remarkable family, and they're all close physically and close emotionally, and it's really good, and so that's worthwhile, and making sure that they succeed in what their goals are and what's happening to them, going through their ups and downs. That always is one of your first wake-ups, I think, is family. And then I have hope. I think there is some rallying going around now among the physician community of the country and so forth to say, if you're not, just like we did when we started, if you're not willing to help us, we'll help ourselves. And we'll try to bring to families what they need. And so,
don't underestimate the type of people who get into med school because they work their butts off to get all the way there, and if they want something, they will get it. They've already proven that.
Well, they're out there.
Yes,
they're out there trying to, as the present governmental situation degrades all of the things that they stand for, they are finding alternative ways to provide care. And that includes preventing diseases that you don't really need to have. Again, I don't like to date myself, but I remember when measles went away. And now it's came back. The last report I saw, there were 900 new cases just this year. So
that's just in South Carolina. That's only South Carolina has passed the 950 mark, and to be clear, those are the people who have reported.
Yeah,
it's not even everybody.
And a lot of people, since measles, I don't have to explain. Measles doesn't make everybody terribly sick. It only kills 1 out of 10, and so or 1 out of 1,000.
2025, most people do not die from measles, but what they die from is an infection they got as a result of measles 3 years later.
Yeah, or reactivation of the program with the panencephalitis that they get.
Yeah. That's
and the immune
horrible.
system gets trashed by
reset
measles.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, all right, I've got a closing question for you. If you could go back to the beginning of your career and give yourself advice, what would it be?
I enjoyed all the things that I did.
Yep.
And so I had a multiple career that covered this path, that path, this path, this path.
Yep.
And so I enjoyed it. So I don't know if I would change anything in my run to where it goes.
But is there something you know now that you wish you had known then?
Well, I wish I would have been able to tell people that they need to decide what they do with their future that affects other people. That you should consider that when you say you're going to do, the whole political situation is very detrimental. And I think for a long time pediatricians didn't step up and say, you really need to look at the science. You really need to understand why getting a cute childhood disease is not cute, and that you need to really, look at that as an important thing, to use your position as a physician and a member in the community to speak about those things, and to understand that if you've seen it for a while, I think there is some problem that's happened in the last 20 years, I would say. I mean, I don't remember when H flu came in, but when that started, physicians didn't see the devastation of all of these diseases that we were able to prevent. And so they didn't think it was anything to worry about. They didn't question it. And then when somebody said, well, that's just, you shouldn't be doing that because of some made up reason, there was no significant pushback. And old folk in my generations who had been through all that saw that and said, you're going to make a big mistake. And it takes a long time to break it, and then it's going to take a long time to wind it back up. That, like I said at the beginning, my fear is polio. And once you start unwinding all of that, it takes a long time to wind it up.
Okay, Kathy, if you could go back to the beginning of your career and give yourself advice, what would it be?
That's a hard question for me. I've been very happy with my place in science, my place in helping physicians and patients. I wish there was a stronger presence and outreach about science itself. I don't know how I could have had an impact on that area, but I'm somewhat dismayed about the continuing disregard of science and how we could do better. And I am more wondering what could be done now to advance the great parts of science without the scary parts. So, genetic manipulation, you go on and on and on for the things that our great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren will be able to see as science doesn't have enough boundaries, but at the same time, people fall away from it. So it's kind of a dichotomy of a issue. But for myself, I think I've been vocal and helpful, and so I'm good.
Okay. If I had to go back to the beginning of my career, you know what I would do?
I'd love to know.
I would start a vaccine buying group and keep all the money for myself, because then I'd be calling you from my own private jet. Yeah. That's what I would do.
Okay. It's not too late.
But I'm glad you guys were there instead, and you made it something for the community, because that was a more appropriate answer. All right. So where am I going to see you next? Where's your next gig? Is it our users conference?
I don't know. We have, as we diversify our offerings and look at other ways to help people with things that are not vaccines associated, but are the things that people need to survive and do well. And that's been sort of our goal. We have some other adventures out there. So I'm not sure how we're going to spread ourselves. And the other thing is that I don't, I'm getting a little bit days on, and so I don't know if
you've earned some vacation time.
Well, I don't mind the vacation time. I'm not a quiet person. It's just sometimes the travel, it sometimes gets a little bit.
I know it well.
So you guys are in the throes of travel, and I don't know about Kathy. Kathy still,
Well, I have a very important conflict this year, Chip. I would love to go out and see you there, but a new granddaughter is expected in July.
Another burden for the next couple of years, and it's going to be big. Yeah, that'll be fun.
That takes priority. That takes priority. Yeah, well, I know you have new crew now too, so perhaps I'll be seeing them. But
yes,
you'll be seeing the new crew probably to a bigger. Okay. The next generation of really smart, kind people. So,
you know what? That is the right way to say it. It's smart and kind people. That'll be actually the title of the podcast. I want to thank you both. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure when I see you. It's nice when you meet like-minded folks, in your career. And I don't know about smart. Okay, I can't say that I'm smart, but I try to be kind. And we've always just meet people who you understand pretty quickly. That's certainly how I would describe you all. So thank you for your service. How does that sound?
I'll expect as much in the way of that. Okay, it's been good for us, Chip. It's been good for us.
Yep. All right.
Chip, well, thank you for everything you've done to...
Yeah, amazing amount of stuff you've done in there.
The physicians and provide all the wonderful reporting and everything that is a huge help. And I know personally how wonderful everything that you have done and PCC has developed for assisting in vaccination and keeping people healthy, and their wonderful tools and reports, and I can't thank you enough for that. And it took
you're very welcome. I take
to do it.
I take credit for a lot of the work of other people.
Well, it's great.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening. More information can be found in our show notes. Production and editing by Chip Hart, Ali Squires, and Chris Forleo. Music by Challenger C. I'm Mark Herney.